That's right. You hear the rock music. Although, is this really rock music? I don't know. It's Orange and Blue today. 3:30 Mountain Time, Monday through Friday. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew Mason. Talking about these Denver Broncos and talking about more players potentially traded away. We had a report from Jordan Schultz, I believe it was, Mace, that said Dalton Reisner could be available for the right price. And I like Jordan. I'll say this. Everyone except for Pat Surtain and Russell Wilson are available for the right price. But Reisner, one of those players like a Draymond Jones in the final year of his rookie contract, and you're just like, oh my God, I don't know how they can keep him around. So maybe there's another name added to this trade pile that the Broncos have.
So I think there we go. Hi.
Yeah.
And the thing is, when you have a 2-5 team, and look, this is not what we expect to be saying this year, but we've said it in past years. When you have a team that is struggling and the deadline is approaching, and I think you and I probably both said this last year, you hear me at DNVR and over on Mile High, like, if you're not part of the future plans, you're tradable. Like, if you're not considered to be part of things in 23, 24, part of the plan, then you'll listen to offers. And so with Dalton Reisner, here's a guy with an expiring contract. And it's questionable whether he's in the Broncos' future plans. Obviously, Broncos country, Broncos fans think the world of him. He's a great son of Colorado. He's active in the community. I mean, he's exactly the kind of person that you want, but we're going into going into the end of his fourth season here. There may be further changes along the offensive line. There may be further changes schematically, and they may not see him as a fit. And certainly as a player, one can argue that maybe that he's never gotten back to where he was the first half of that rookie season before he had that high ankle sprain.
Yeah, and first half of the rookie season, wasn't that when John always like, he's going to 10 Pro Bowls? Like, okay, well, slow down there, John. Need to make one first. But a player that, I mean, this offensive line is in so many shambles. I wish you could hometown deal him, and just be like, hey, take something now that's a little bit cheaper to keep him around, just for the mere fact, two facts, because one, he's great in the community, but two, also because you need options. Got a lot of work to do up front of that offensive line. Trading away Dalton Reisner just adds to your workload.
Right, and the other thing, it was interesting to just kind of think about over the weekend. Noticed our old friend Connor McGovern was starting for the New York Jets when they came in on Sunday. And the interesting thing with offensive linemen is they take so long to develop that a lot of times you're getting the best out of them when they're in that second contract. If you're talking about somebody who's not a Pro Bowler but a solid starter, usually they're kind of hitting their stride year 5, year 6, year 7. The problem is a lot of linemen don't get to that point. They don't reach it because they get hurt and the injuries start to accumulate. And physically, they're not what they were when they came into the league as rookies. So you're kind of walking that fine line here. And that's one reason why, I mean, I get the rumors about Dalton Reisner. And if he's not in the Broncos' plans, they should try to get something for him more than they would get if he left on the open market. I just say, all right, here's somebody who maybe he's not going to be a 10-time Pro Bowler like John Elway said, but he's a reliable starter. Do you want to be trying to fix things on the offensive line by jettisoning players who, they're at least capable, solid NFL starters? I'm not sure that's the right call.
Right. And then you wonder, how could they afford him? And then you wonder what's going to happen with everybody else. Now, you wrote it earlier today at denverfan.com about the team that you brought up. I think we talked about Howie Roseman yesterday, like, oh, Howie, he's addicted to trades. But I don't know if you saw the Roquan Smith press conference, but that came through when the Robert Quinn news came through.
I did see that.
And Roquan had to stop talking. Like, he got emotional and started to get tears in his eyes. So you know what it meant to him when his teammates get traded away. And here we go. The Eagles, the team that you thought, oh man, get a Bradley Chubb. It's a go for it move. Well, they got a different pass rusher.
Yeah, they got Robert Quinn, and they got him for a 4th-round pick. And Quinn is just a few months removed from having 18.5 sacks. And I mean, he's got obviously less time on his contract, and the Bears are going to eat a fair amount of the deal. But still, I mean, the Eagles would look at Robert Quinn. I think they'd look and say, okay, we don't really need Bradley Chubb at this point. What they're trying to do, it's clear like they were looking for a shorter term solution, whereas with Bradley Chubb, if he goes somewhere, the likelihood is he ends up re-signing with that team. He's viewed as more of a longer term solution. And I think the Eagles were with those 2 first-round picks were probably thinking in terms of, all right, let's just kind of bridge the gap here. Maybe we find longer term solutions on edge when we get to the draft.
Yeah. Paul says Cecil and Mace rock. Thank you, Paul. We try. This team doesn't rock, though. My goodness. Klongya says, at one point we thought that first-round pick the Seattle got would probably not be that great. So much for that. But again, we'll be at the vanguard of this, Mace. You got one more year left of paying on it. And then you are debt-free when it comes to Russell Wilson, other than his contract. But debt-free for the draft. So, a Bradley Chubb trade, a Jerry Jeudy trade, maybe a Dalton Reisner trade, assemble some picks. Maybe those aren't first-rounders, but you use those picks to move up into the first round if you'd like, and that gives you some options for next year, just 1 year.
No doubt about that, and that's the thing. And that's also why when you talk about Bradley Chubb, if you've decided not to re-sign him, you get a compensatory pick back at the end of the third round when he departs, but that's not until 2024. That's a year when you're dealing with a full deck of draft picks and kind of can plan accordingly. When this roster looks like it's going to need some fortification in 23, and it's going to need something coming out of the draft. And so that's another element that's in the Bradley Chubb discussions here is even if you don't get a first round pick, even if you're only talking about a day 2 pick, a couple of day 2 picks, those help, and it's not only more than you would get in terms of overall draft capital value if you just waited and let him go in free agency, but it has more value because those picks come next year when you really need them. The only year where you're kind of scrambling to fill this void. Look, you have a full complement of picks next year, which means if you get this thing turned around by this time next year, Cecil, we're talking about the Broncos being buyers again on the trade market rather than sellers. I mean, the last few years it's been sell, sell, sell. 2018, they trade the late Demaryius Thomas. 2019, Emmanuel Sanders. 2021, Von Miller. And now we're having the discussion about multiple players today.
Yeah, multiple players that could be on the trade block, and the game in London coming up. And, it looks like Russell Wilson's going to play. He was working out on the plane. And Russ, God bless you, Russell Wilson. But everything he does, people clown him. Like everything. Like I was working out on the plane. I was doing high kicks, right? And every social networking is brutal when it comes to Russell Wilson, regardless of what the news is.
Yeah. You know what? Some of it, like with the Subway ads and all of that, it's you bring it on yourself when you're talking about doing a commercial, that sort of thing. This is, I think the uproar today is unfair. First of all, they're like, oh, how annoying is this compared to other passengers? I mean, this is not like somebody kicking the seat. Okay. This is not like somebody taking their shoes and socks off on a plane. This is nothing. The guys are pretty well spread out on that plane as well. They've got multiple seats to themselves. I mean, for example, if it's I think it's a Airbus A350, I believe. I mean, I'm not sure that you even have anybody sitting on the aisle on a flight like this. I think everybody's probably got at least 3 seats to themselves in the back of the plane to sit back and relax. Maybe they got extra first class, that sort of thing. I really do not think Russell Wilson was bothering anybody by going up and down the aisles. And oh, by the way, he wasn't doing it for the whole flight. He spent 4 hours either watching film or sleeping, and then 4 hours receiving treatment, which and exercising, which included the knee kicks. All right. I mean, I think people have this vision of, oh, he spent 8 hours all the way from Denver to London doing this and before he touched down at Heathrow. No, that's not what happened. And look, some of the critiques of Russell Wilson are fair. Critiques of how he's playing are fair. I think some of the vitriol we've seen today has not been fair.
Yeah, and that's where the stuff with Russell Wilson's become a little bit ridiculous. It's like, oh, he's corny. Yeah, we already knew that. Everybody all knew that. And the Subway thing, whatever. Honestly, I think if Nikola Jokic could ever get commercials, because it's odd that a back-to-back MVP doesn't have commercials, because he's the Joker, but he's not funny. Russell Wilson, he's not dangerous, but he's pretending to be dangerous, and that's why it's so goofy and corny and cheeseball. Yeah, let Nikola Jokic do that. But the difference is Nikola Jokic is winning. Maybe not this year as much. Although tonight against the Lakers, we'll see.
It's early. Come on, Cecil. It's early.
Super early. Super early.
I mean, the season really doesn't start until Christmas anyway, and we're just under 2 months out from that. I mean, everybody's got to chill on that. The thing that does work against Russell Wilson, though, in terms of perception, at least around here, is that he doesn't have 10 years worth of goodwill and good play built up as a reservoir against tough times. That's the thing. Like in Seattle, there's a lot of good moments, a lot of fond memories that Seahawks fans understandably have of big plays and big moments that Russell Wilson has provided. So if he were still there and struggling like this, it would not be the same reaction because they've seen how it's looked on the positive side. Broncos country hasn't seen that. And I do think that one way in which Russell Wilson has erred in terms of reading the room and reading the audience and Team Russ as well is the not understanding that when things aren't going well, that the multitudes of Broncos country, they don't have in the backs of their minds all the good things that Russell Wilson has done. Everything that they view here is based on what he's doing right now in this season. So there's no reservoir of goodwill.
Yeah, equity, cachet, whatever you want to say. You don't have anything built up. Dominic chimes in the chat room. Put Sutton up. Okay, yeah, I'd rather put Jerry Jeudy up. That's just me. Sutton's contract is not something that teams would slide against. But, Sutton on the trade block, everyone's tradable. I want to make that very, very clear. But to me, if you're going to get rid of a wide receiver, I would prefer it to be Jerry Jeudy. 1, you already have Sutton under contract. 2, I think is a better receiver than Jeudy. And 3, well, I don't know if I have a 3. But either way, we haven't heard anything about Sutton. Doesn't mean something couldn't happen, though.
Doesn't mean something couldn't happen, but part of it is with wide receivers, because they're becoming more and more fungible assets and relatively easy to find. I think teams look at a contract like that and they say, okay, we don't necessarily need to do that. Jerry Jeudy's on a rookie contract. KJ Hamler's on a rookie contract. That's why these guys are coming up, because you're not looking at a mid-teens average annual cap figure for those guys like you're looking at with Courtland Sutton. Tim Patrick, Broncos are stuck with them for at least a couple of years here. Now, I think if Tim Patrick gets all the way back, that's great. The problem is he's coming back from an ACL. Courtland Sutton had an ACL injury. And I think although Courtland Sutton can make some good plays, I think it's still pretty clear he is not quite what he was before the injury.
Yeah, and that's what you get sometimes in the National Football League. The reports, I think it was Jordan Schultz again, that said KJ Hamler's name is coming up in more discussions than Jerry Jeudy because of the Jeudy asking price. Hamler's kind of a great unknown. You're not going to get much for him. With Jeudy, you'd get a little bit more, and we'll see there, and a team would have a decision on his 5th-year option if he's traded away. The Hamler thing, if KJ does get traded, I like KJ a lot. If he does get traded, I just hope he gets an opportunity, because that's a talented young man who's hungry and super silly fast. But the reports are now more teams are talking about Hamler than they are Jeudy.
Lower asking price and also less headaches, quite frankly. Jerry Jeudy's a talented player, but for whatever reason, you've got the off-field stuff over the summer that did not result in an arrest or charges or anything like that. You've got some of the reactions that he has on social media after the games. It just seems like with Jerry Jeudy, there are all these things around him that teams just kind of look at and say, okay, potential distraction. KJ Hamler doesn't have that. KJ Hamler is just a really diligent, hardworking guy who takes everything to heart, but doesn't go out and after a loss to after a loss where he barely gets targeted, doesn't go out and tweet, "Hey, at least I got my steps in." I mean,
right.
and look, that's the sort of thing that that teams look at. They're looking at how somebody can step in and fit into their locker room, into their organizational culture. And while Judy doesn't have the injury history that KJ Hamler has more proven ability at this level than KJ Hamler has. He doesn't have the baggage, or Judy has baggage that KJ Hamler doesn't have, and I think that's one reason why you look at a lower price for Hamler, less baggage, higher price for Judy, more baggage, and teams say, "Oh, I'm more interested in KJ Hamler."
Yeah, and there could be other wide receivers with other teams that are available and players that have been quieter. Kenny Galladay, and I know they say he's banged up. Like, he's banged up, okay. Like, there's some guys just don't fit in. Same team, Kadarius Toney, right? He doesn't fit in with what Brian Daboll's doing. Oh, he's banged up. Yeah, sure, I got you.
Yeah.
So if you're an NFL team, if you want a wide receiver, you've got some choices.
Yeah, and honestly, like, if you didn't want to do it for a draft pick, if you want to do a change of scenery trade, I mean, we've seen what Kenny Galladay can do in the right situation.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that's one, honestly, like, sometimes we get it right, sometimes we get it wrong. Kenny Galladay falling short in the Giants, that was something I did not see. I thought that was a great signing for them when they brought him in. Mm-hmm. And, I mean, the guy had he had Matthew Stafford throwing to him, but we can get into a discussion of what Stafford has become. But the guy was having a lot of success in a really bad situation in Detroit. So the fact that it hasn't worked out with the Giants is kind of baffling. But based on his body of work, that high-level play is there within him if he's in the right headspace and if he's in the right thing schematically. So, I mean, I guess if the Giants called and said, "Hey, let's do Judy for Galladay," I wouldn't blanch at that, Cecil. What do you think? Would you think about that?
I would take a chance on that because Galladay's been proven as a number one before.
Yeah.
We do have a question. Is Sutton a number one anymore after that injury? The answer might be no. He's a number two, which is fine. He's been hurt, and he was never a speed guy. So if he was like 90% of his old speed, he'd still be fine. Reminds me, nobody's going to get this except for you, Mace. It's why I love you. Vincent Brown. When he was at San Diego State, we saw him at the Senior Bowl. Dude was like tearing it up. But you knew, okay, Vincent Brown was only so fast, and then he had a knee injury, and then he couldn't make it. Like, so you went from a guy that was a playmaker, and I believe a third-round pick for the Chargers, San Diego State.
Yeah, he stayed right there in town. Yep.
It stayed right there in town. But as soon as he got hurt, he just couldn't play. And I'm not saying that Sutton can't play, but when you don't have that main asset being speed and you lose some of that speed, you're just not. I mean, he's not getting the separation. He doesn't have the explosion like above the rim that he used to. So it's something to think about.
Yeah, bingo on Cortland Sutton. I mean, he can still go up and win those jump balls. He's got a good chance on those 50-50s. But you see it, especially against high-level corners. He doesn't get the separation anymore. And then what happens as a result, when he doesn't get separation, he can win those jump balls, but then it forces you into a situation where it's physical on physical, right? I know everyone's still frustrated probably about the no call against Sauce Gardner on that 4th and 3. Well, here's the thing, though. Watch what is happening before the ball is in the air. Watch what's happening as the route is being set up. There's a lot of hand fighting, and most officials are going to look at that sort of hand fighting once it happens both ways. And even though you could legitimately have called Sauce for the PI for yanking Sutton's on the back of the collar, they're going to look the other way, because at that point they've kind of checked out and said, okay, these guys are just jostling physically back and forth. One hand washes the other. I'm going to let it slide.
Right. Let it slide. Let it slide. Yeah. It is orange and blue.
Let's ride. Let it slide.
Let it slide. Let's slide. Let's hide. Let's glide into the next subject. And we've got about 5 minutes left, so maybe I should have brought this up sooner. But a lot of people seem to think Nathaniel Hackett won't come back as the Broncos coach if they lose. I tend to disagree with that. I think he's the coach, unless maybe they were like embarrassed, well, hell, like the Chargers were against Jacksonville. So maybe anything is
Mhm.
possible. KG said that. But Mace, where do you stand? Because we're getting a lot of fan interaction. Be like, Hackett shouldn't come back from England. Like, okay, I understand why you're upset. I just think he will.
Yeah. If it's up to me, I'm asking him to make some changes specifically to play calling. I'm asking him to turn it over to either Clint Kubiak or Justin Alton, more likely Clint Kubiak, just given the fact that he did it last year pretty well with Minnesota. Wasn't perfect, but they had a pretty effective offense last year. Moving the ball wasn't their problem with the Vikings. It was stopping people.
Right.
That's I would if it's up to me, I'm letting Hackett make changes first before it's him. Look, if you fire Hackett after this game, it's literally the quickest coach firing in 44 years in the NFL. Go back to George Allen, 1978 preseason with the Los Angeles Rams. It's been a long time since we've seen anything comparable. I mean, Urban Meyer got more time than this last year, Cease. Urban Meyer should have been gone when he didn't get on the flight home from Cincinnati. Forget about what happened the next night. That's personal. That's between him and his wife, all that.
Right.
The fact that he didn't accompany his team back home after a tough Thursday night loss, man alive, how can you preach accountability and responsibility when the team flight lifts into the air to go back home to Jacksonville and the head coach's seat is empty? Said everything right there. I have trouble getting my arms around the idea that Urban Meyer would have lasted longer than Nathaniel Hackett. I think you give him time to make some changes and see where they go before you make a move. So if it's up to me, I wouldn't do it. But I do think it's a very realistic possibility, kind of reading the tea leaves and kind of and gathering some things in the last couple of days.
Diamond Rattler says he might be embarrassing, but he seems like a good dude, and that's part of it. Like,
yeah,
I was talking to someone very close to the team last week, and they were like, "I've built such a great relationship with Nathaniel Hackett. I hate to see him go."
Yeah, and maybe that means they play hard for him on Sunday. That's what I'm hoping to see, right? Like that. Okay,
we've seen that before with teams.
Yeah, that all right. Your coach is under fire. Do you want this guy who really cares about you? And that's one of the things that the guys love about him is compared to the last head coach. Right. This is somebody who cares about them as people. I mean, some guys weren't even sure that Vic knew if they were married, if they had kids, the personal type of stuff. Derek Wolfe has told some stories about Vic Fangio not really having any understanding and acceptance of guys' lives beyond football. Nathaniel Hackett's the exact opposite. Players appreciate that. There's frustration in some circles with how the offense is being called, especially from the defensive side, but it's nothing against Nathaniel Hackett as a person. Every conversation about Nathaniel Hackett tends to include the words, he's a great guy, but... Everyone wants to, but it's palpable that that at the front of everyone's minds is that this is a genuinely good human being who is simply struggling as a football coach, but that is as a person, they love this guy.
And when you have someone that's a good person that's struggling, you help.
Yeah, help him. And the best way, if you want to keep this guy around, the best thing you guys can do, the Denver Broncos, the guys are going to be in those ugly white over blue uniforms on Sunday. Best thing you can do is come out and play hard. By the way, we got to touch on that really quick, Cecil. I mean, I think we can both agree the Broncos need a uniform refresh.
Yes.
But this is something beyond whether you think
the stripes don't match on the side.
Thank you. They don't match. This is not about like taste. This is literally about how the uniform does not match.
It's like they forgot their uniforms at home. So like, well, we'll just have to mix and match.
Yeah. Right? And you know what, Cecil? If they win on Sunday, we're going to see this uniform combo in Tennessee coming out of the bye. And if they win that game, at some point, they're going to wear orange over blue. By the way, the Blue Pants are 1-0 this year when they went all blue.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, if they do well on Sunday, if they come out and play hard for a coach that they really like as a person, we're going to see this mismatched look: blue pants with a white jersey, blue pants with an orange jersey, with the blue stripe, the blue side swoosh on the jersey, and the orange stripe on the pants. We're going to see this over and over. So get ready. If the Broncos play well, this sartorial nightmare will not be going away.
Get ready for more Orange and Blue today, 3:30 p.m. Mountain Time. He is Mace. I am Cease. Thank you very much for watching. Be safe, be kind, know you are appreciated. Everyone out there, I command that you stay tuned and stay frosty.